Hey, everybody. I hope you are doing well this Friday afternoon. This is Fathery of Tex-Trek coming at you with a very special live broadcast. We actually did not plan on doing any podcast recording this week. I wanted to take the week off for my birthday. It's my birthday tomorrow. But there was just so much damn Star Trek news coming out of Monday, coming out of the official First Contact Day celebration events, that how could I possibly take the day off? How could I not want to talk to everybody and share this with you and recap all of the news for you and put a spin on it and let you know our opinions on this information. So I felt obligated to come in on my day off and share this with everybody. So I'm just going to go ahead and kick things off. I have a panel planned. I have people lined up. I'm going to have some guests. Let me check my phone because I should have people coming in any minute now to join us. And we're going to talk about all of the news that came out of the First Contact Day event. So let's just kick things off. I'm Fathery, and this is Tex-Trek.
Engage.
Welcome back to the Starship Texas for the 140th installment of the Tex-Trek podcast, the home of Star Trek fandom, from deep in the heart of Texas, where we talk deep about Star Trek all the time. I changed up my intro there. I was trying to factor in like deep in the heart of Texas, like maybe like talking deep. I don't know if it works or not. Let me know what you think. We can tweak it or whatever. Yeah, this is kind of a special broadcast for those of you checking in live. We did not actually plan on doing anything this week. I wanted to take the week off for my birthday. I wanted to maybe just kind of kick back and chill and not think about Star Trek for a little bit, just a tiny little bit of a break. But there was so much news this week that I heard the call to return to the camera and the microphone and record some content for everyone, because there is just so much exciting stuff that we need to talk about. I was so very impressed with the First Contact Day presentation that CBS All Access did. I thought that was like really cool. And I thought there would be like one or two little tidbits of information, like maybe like a release date, or maybe a small little teaser trailer, or maybe like some Picard season 2 news. But no, we got all of that above and more. We have teaser trailers for Picard, for Lower Decks, for Discovery. We have a release date for when we get new Star Trek back. We have a news on a new character returning to Star Trek Picard. We have new uniforms in Star Trek Discovery season 4. So yet another Starfleet uniform. So there's a lot to unpack. I have some people planned out that are going to pop up on this panel with me, but we had to kick things off a little early. We had to start streaming a little early. I typically don't do this until later in the evening, but I have some birthday festivities. If I can be like a little selfish, I had like some little things to do later that I wanted to do to celebrate with my loved ones. But I told them, like, you know what? Before we do that, I have to talk Star Trek on the internet with these lovely people. Speaking of which, one of them is right here, ready to join me. I have the one and only Brian in the house. Brian, how the hell?
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you are coming in loud.
All right.
So Brian is going to help me delve through all of the Star Trek news we got from the First Contact Day panels, and we'll have a few other guests that pop up, I think, later on as we continue to stream and share all this information with you. Those of you checking us out live, please let us know in the comments what you think. And Robbie, Earl Grey, Trekkie, I sent you an invite if you would like to hop on. You are more than welcome to join us. But Brian, right now it's just you and me. Let's go ahead and kick things off, and we'll talk about the various panels. Let me ask you, were you able to watch any of the First Contact Day stuff as it was unfolding, or did you follow any of the news that day, or did you just catch up on it later? What was your reaction to it?
I mean, I was vaguely aware that they were going to do something for First Contact Day because they'd been advertising it, and I'd given how big of a deal they made with all that other Star Trek stuff they dropped in late 2020. I'm trying to remember what the event was, but anyway, where they had all
they had Star Trek Day. They had Star Trek Day September 8th last year.
Yeah, that was it. Star Trek Day. Anyway, given how much they'd done for that, I was thinking we might get a bunch of stuff for that, though I was not expecting anywhere near as much as what we got.
You and me both.
Yeah, I did. I guess I was watching the trailers within the teasers within about 10 minutes or less of them dropping. I was on Facebook at the time.
I was sending the links to you as they were dropping.
Yes, courtesy of Tex-Trek largely. I was able to keep up with it while I was doing other things, and I wasn't necessarily as productive as I probably should have been during that period because I kept stopping to say, oh, what's this? Oh, what's this? Oh, what's this? Oh, isn't that cool? So, yeah, it was a very memorable First Contact Day.
Yeah, I love that not only do we have so much Star Trek content and development, but I feel like how it was like back in the 90s where there was like a team of people hired by the bosses to do like the marketing and promotional material, and we're just getting like tons and tons of new stuff. And with like the modern era of the internet and social media, you can really utilize that to do like cool fan stuff like First Contact Day or Star Trek Day in September. Hey, they could have one in the spring, one in the fall. It kind of works out. You know, you have one every 6 months. So that's really cool. It's really fun. And I hope that they continue to do more and more of these events like this. But let's just, without further ado, let's just go ahead and get into the nitty gritty and talk about it. I'm going to share some images with those of you that are checking us out live. And we're going to start from the top of the show, from the very beginning of the First Contact Day broadcast, with the Star Trek PICARD panel they did with Will Wheaton, Patrick Stewart, and John Delancey. We get the big confirmation right off the bat that Q is returning to Star Trek. John Delancey was coming in from his boat that he was on. I know he's a very like nautical person in real life. I actually talked to him on the Star Trek cruise. He likes to like hang out on a ship at sea. That's kind of like his home away from home, I guess. Brian, I'm just going to quickly like run through the PICARD trailer and then we'll talk about it one-on-one. But just real quick, let me just lay this all out there for our audience. But we get this PICARD teaser trailer. It's more about tone than anything. I don't think we're seeing any actual footage from the second season of the show, but it's clearly about time. We get this big shot of a clock in PICARD's updated study or office or whatever on the holodeck of the La Sirena. I think this just might be like the 2.0 version of like where PICARD hangs out. Brian's got a red alert going off. We'll just skim past that. But yeah, we see like this lovely set. We see his Starfleet badge from his movie era days. We see the books, The Dark Tunnel and Paradise Lost. We'll talk more about that in a second. We see the model of the Stargazer ship. We see an hourglass flowing backwards. That makes me think we're going back in time. We see a game table with a poker card on it that dissolves to the letter Q. It's like the Queen of Hearts, but we see it all dissolve away except for the Q in the corner of the card. And that Queen of Hearts, that's a reference to the first episode of Star Trek Picard, where Data in Picard's dream had a hand of 5 Queen of Hearts. So yeah, a lot of neat stuff in there. And also, me just being a big DS9 fan, let me point out they have the Bajoran tablet from the episode Reckoning. And I see some people pointing out maybe they have like that same tablet. Maybe it's on like the La Sirena. Maybe Picard is studying it. And I don't think that's the case, because if you remember that episode, it crumbled into a bunch of broken pieces and dust. But I think it might just be like a holographic recreation of it. I think this is mainly just like set dressing for the set they're using in Picard Season 2. I wouldn't associate too much with any of the visual Easter eggs in here. And then maybe like the marketing department came on later and decided to, promote this or that. But Brian, let me ask you, what did you think about this Picard Season 2 teaser trailer?
I have to admit, I was really excited about it. Really excited. A lot. In fact, of the things that dropped, this was by far the thing that got me most pumped. And there was definitely a lot to visually chew on here. The Paradise Lost, of course, seems to point to Khan, and
or it could be Q. It's not a leap and a jump away from Q, the guy who's like, he's kind of like God, he's kind of like the devil. So I don't know, does he rule in hell or what?
Yeah, I mean, just because Shakespeare shows up doesn't mean we're doing a sequel to Conscience of the King.
Absolutely, well said.
But certainly that's the thing I think of most when I think Star Trek and Paradise Lost. Honestly, I'm a big enough nerd that when I think Paradise Lost by itself, I think Khan.
If someone mentions Paradise, I take that back. If someone mentions Milton, if you just say like Milton, I picture Ricardo Montalban. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know how deep to dig into that. Obviously, the whole Paradise Lost thing doesn't really apply to Khan till he gets marooned. It seems like arguably, I don't know. I guess it sort of applies once he gets kicked off of Earth for being an asshole. So yeah, that's like, are we going to somehow connect with the Khan in some way? Will they bring back Benedict Cumberbatch to play Khan?
I don't think so.
I doubt it. It just seems like the weirdest thing ever for this particular show. But yeah, I definitely, I'm sure that title was chosen with care. I can't imagine they would have just done Shakespeare if they wanted to do something Picardy.
Ryan, you remember the season 1 teaser trailer we got for Star Trek Picard, where it just had like some random shots of like the vineyard and some grapes growing on vines and stuff. And there's that one line of dialogue that we later found out belonged to like the reporter interviewing him in the first episode. But this reminds me of that. Like, none of those shots were actually used in the show. I think this is probably like the actual set that the production department built for season 2. I'm assuming, I should say. And so they're just like shooting stuff that's on that. Like, I say that for like the Bajoran Reckoning talent, but I think tonally we can interpret some things here. Like, I don't know if the Dark Tunnel, the fictional Dixon Hill novel, means anything, but Paradise Lost, I think that could definitely translate to Q. I know that's like a con thing, but we can probably associate that with Q pretty easily. A lot of the trailer was built around the reveal of Q. I don't know if literally we'll go back in time to the Stargazer, but just like seeing the model get so much focus, that does make us think like, oh, it's a bit of like a return to the past. The hourglass flowing backwards, I think, is definitely signaling that.
Yeah. I mean, we do have a Stargazer character already introduced in this series.
Yeah, we have that doctor. So show that dude like a little bit de-aged. I would love that, by the way, if we got to see like the Stargazer in the show. And speaking of things I love that another guest has joined us. We actually now have Sean from the amazing YouTube channel Trek on the Tube. Sean, how the hell are you?
Hi, it's the first time meeting Brian, I think.
Y'all have streamed together before.
You think?
Yeah, when we did like the Strange New Worlds announcement trailer, y'all were both on that. Not
Okay.
trailer. Not trailer. I take that back. When it's just like the announcement. When it's just like that video of like Rebecca Romaine and Ethan Peck and what's his name? Pike. The hell's his
Anson Mount?
name? Anson Mount. Yeah,
Yeah,
the most important guy. But when it's just like the three of them being like, oh, there's a new Star Trek show coming, and it's going to be Strange New Worlds. It's going to be like the three of us. Like we were all on that together.
yeah. Before we get too far from what we were talking about, that Stargazer there, yeah, I don't suppose there's any chance this would end up being the death of Jack Crusher's story that has been alluded to many, many times in The Next Generation, but never properly explained.
That's possible. I think they might, if that was what they were doing, they might have already would have started promoting with that, or like they might have already like announced like who's playing Jack Crusher. It's gonna be like a big deal. But I mean, like you're right. Like it could be something that is explored in the show. I just feel like if that was the case, they would already have like.
You think it's something as horrible as like Q doing a tapestry type thing, but kind of teasing Picard and Beverly in like a reality where Jack never died or something like that?
You say horrible, but I think like Q doing a tapestry type thing would be kind of cool because I love time travel.
No, I say horrible like in the sense haunting to Picard himself.
I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. No, like I don't know if they would do something like that Jack Crusher focused. But these are things I haven't pondered until the two of y'all brought them up just now in the last couple of minutes. So who knows? That's certainly possible. I just feel like Jack Crusher is such a big deal. Like he was married to one of the TNG cast. He was the father to another TNG cast. He was like best friend to another TNG cast. Like I felt like Jack Crusher is like such like a huge presence. If you were going to make him a big part of season 2, you would have given us a little bit more than just like the Stargazer in this.
Well,
but I could be wrong.
Let's face,
I could be wrong.
I think you would always, if it was going to be Q as the mechanism to reach that story, you would always lead with Q. That is by far the thing you would lead with, which is what they have done. And you might want to doll out your surprises over time if it's going to be a long time till the show season 2 premieres, rather than dump them all at once. So I don't know if we've seen anything that necessarily rules it out just by their choice of what they've revealed. I can also, we all love Will Wheaton to pieces. I don't know if leading for the big public reveal with it's a Wesley story is necessarily what they would do for the masses.
But the things that I do want to point out is that at the beginning of the panel, when they announced John Delancey's return, and Patrick Stewart does like a version of the Picard facepalm when Will Wheaton brings on John Delancey. I think that was a fun moment to see play out when they were broadcasting this, but also I don't think they've shot the Q stuff yet on the show. The way that they're talking, the fact that John Delancey has like a bit of a beard, like okay, like he clearly hasn't shaved for the role. The way that Patrick Stewart says, when Q shows up on the show, it is very like abrupt and unexpected. That makes it sound like to me they haven't shot this yet. And
I got the exact same impression when I watched that video.
But speaking of things that Patrick Stewart was talking about, he also said like, because I'm an executive producer, I've seen scripts far in advance, and he also said, like, I wish I could blurt out to you. He's talking to, like, his good friend, Will Wheaton. He's like, I wish I could blurt out to you all the storylines and situations and times you are going to be seeing in the second season. So, okay, let's just be real. Let's be adults about it. They're definitely doing time travel. They're definitely doing Q. They're definitely doing time travel. What do y'all think about that?
I hate the time travel thing. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I guess if it's a chance to, if it's a kind of a this is your life kind of tapestry,
like
kind of,
or all good things,
all good things, style, time travel. Then and maybe they could even directly reference how all good things didn't happen because of, they could even, throw in a little check about how
just the anti-time.
Yeah. That how Q was responsible for making sure that the all good things timeline didn't happen.
You're welcome, John Luke.
Yeah. a second. Oh god, I got derailed there. Somebody else say something. I'm sorry. I was trying to figure out what I was going with that. I had to.
I want to bounce off. I want to bounce off something a little different. It's not far off. Don't worry. We talk about Q, and we all assume it's going to be like a tapestry or whatever, because that's what comes to us. And I'm not saying that they like to subvert our expectations specifically, but when we rediscovered Picard, he was completely broken, and he was not the same Picard as we were all used to. Because I feel like that the current team of writers and producers like to basically challenge our expectations or challenge our knowledge of the characters that they have. So maybe the beard and the scruffy John Delancey is like a scruffy Q, and not that he's lost his powers, but that something's happened in the continuum. He's very troubled. He needs Picard's help, or he needs like the Federation's help. Maybe it's something like that, rather than him being the omnipotent guy that's like, instead of him being in power, he's lost his power. Not his physical powers, but I mean his well,
that would tie in with Paradise Lost, where it's about this fallen angel to some degree. Satan is this fallen angel who's been booted out of heaven. Q could have been booted out of the continuum, so that could be, and that would certainly be a lot more. I mean, we've kind of seen that with Q being forced to be human, but for the most part,
the first time that Picard did the face palm in front of Q, which Patrick Stewart told John Delancey, like, I promise I won't do that this time, or something to that effect. That makes me think they haven't shot the Q footage yet.
Yes. Which would probably, since they generally shoot this stuff in order?
COVID, I think, has
the first season they did
with that a little bit, but in general, I think yes, they do. I know with some of the COVID stuff, like with the Discovery, for example, they were shooting some bits of episodes ahead of other bits of episodes.
All right,
but if you have to film on location, I'm assuming that you have to like schedule. Like scheduling becomes complicated because you have to make sure that the place that you're going to has been disinfected, maybe has been sitting there for 2 days without anyone in contact. Then you can bring your crew and cast and do whatever it is you have to do. And then same thing for every other, I suppose, crew that wants to come in.
I would think it would be fairly in order, just because they still seem to be using each director gets their own episode kind of production thing. And that would just be insane if you had like
2 episodes with the Picard model. Was like
I suppose
director like 2 episodes.
But you would have to shoot all the stuff in those blocks for the most part without it just. Otherwise, it would just become crazy because you're like, oh, we're going to shoot all the La Serena stuff. So now for the first half of the day, this director's in charge, but for the second half of the day, this director's in charge. Yeah. That would be really crazy. And then that director goes away for a week until he has his next slot where he has to come in for his episode. Yeah, I don't think it would be a lot of reworking of the Hollywood machine to get it so that you shot things very, very much out of order. I guess you could shoot whole episodes out of order, but they would still be in episode chunks or 2-parter chunks, as you suggested. I'm just trying to figure out if we can figure out when Q's going to show up in the show based on the fact that apparently John Delancey hasn't shaved yet.
I'm going to guess at least episode 3, but that's just
okay.
Me.
Well, in the conversation that we had with PJ and Starfleet Boy, I think we all came to the conclusion that maybe if Q is a very important part of the story, he might bookend the show, like come in the beginning and then like in the first episode, and then come in the last episode of this, like of the season, not the show, the season, right? And then maybe have him in the middle at some point.
I feel like the show's gonna open with other stuff, and then the Q character will enter the show a bit later. But
so you don't think he's going to be the like the thing that sets everything in motion?
No, I don't.
Okay.
Well, I think I could imagine them doing a story where Q has been kicked out and reality is broken for some reason. And then we have to spend a few episodes figuring out why reality is broken. And then episode 3, it has something to do with Q. That's why reality is broken. That said, I kind of hope they don't do that because I'm kind of tired of space-time being broken stories.
I want a smaller scale story, personally.
Yeah, especially since they're already promising that that's what we're getting for season 4 of Discovery.
Why not a Q wants to discover the pleasures of life? He just wants to go out and eat a pizza, like in Pixar's Soul, right?
Yeah, he just wants to see what it's like to be human. Well, they kind of did that in season 3 of TNG.
Yeah.
So
they kind of did that in Voyager too, didn't they?
I think this is the last thing I have to say about Q and Picard season 2. But I'm actually a big fan of time travel, and I love time travel in Star Trek. I know other people feel differently about it. And Sean, I know you have voiced concerns over like too much time travel or like the time travel rules being inconsistent, stuff like that. And I understand, like I don't have the same concerns, but I understand where you come from. I think Q, in my opinion, he's a good vehicle to get to play with those toys and tell timey-wimey stories you couldn't tell otherwise. And because it's Q, because it's this magical god being, you don't have to worry about the rules as much. That makes me excited, like possibilities of like maybe we'll see like younger Picard on the Stargazer, or maybe we'll see like a Jack Crusher story. You know, stuff like that. I'm very excited. I think the use of Q is a good idea, and I hope that the new showrunner, what's his name? He was a Voyager
Terry Matalas
guy. Yeah, Terry Matalas, right?
Yeah, I think I don't know if it's Matalas,
Matalas.
I don't know.
Terry,
he showran 12 Monkeys.
Yeah.
Oh, so I've heard very good things about 12 Monkeys. Have not seen it, but I'm embarrassed to say that because I've heard so many good things.
I am in the same situation as you, so we stand together.
Me as well. So the three of us, we're the three apes that need to watch 12 Monkeys.
Monkeys, yes.
Terry, I hope you have as good of an eye for detail as say what you will about him, but Michael Chabon had a good eye for detail. He had a good memory for continuity, stuff like that. And I would like to see that played out with a Q time travel story. I think would be interesting. Yeah. So I hope that same attention to detail in Picard season 2 as they did.
I can maybe reassure you with something that I've heard, and I can't say this is fact because again we haven't, like, none of us have seen 12 Monkeys. Mm-hmm. But I would say that Chabon, being a novelist, was more focused on like the kind of, I suppose, emotion or the sentiment of what was going on, not necessarily and he wasn't so anal about the details, that kind of stuff. That's the kind of storyteller that he was. Terry Matalas, from my understanding, is very different. He's much more Mike McMahony in the sense that he's very picky in terms of details and likes to get things right and likes to have everything make sense. And if the show 12 Monkeys is anything like the movie, then it is very much time travel-y and based on specific details that the audience, like if you miss them, it's fun to go back and rewatch and realize that you missed it. So
okay, I was gonna say
that reassures me.
Yeah, I was gonna say that if you've got Q handling the time travel mechanics, and they're hinting that they go to multiple time zones, so it's not just one big time flip like, say, Voyage Home. Then, of course, having a mechanism that easily gets you to all those others like Q would certainly make the storytelling easy. And because Q is apparently taking care of the details, then you don't have to worry about the mechanics of time travel and can focus on the drama of time travel. Now, what you pointed out, that he did 12 Monkeys, has me thinking, oh no, this is going to be much more like Stephen Moffat with Puzzle Box time travel, where the mechanics are like the structure of the whole thing. And it could be very wibbly wobbly, timey wimey if what you say is true, maybe Q comes in to bail them out of a situation.
maybe Terry is like, you know what? I tried to write a show that was so meticulous about every little detail of time travel. It is a relief for me to write a show where I can just be like, you know what? Q does it. It's good. Bam.
I mean, yeah, that's possible.
Bam.
But yeah, snap, not bam.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I can't do that, so I'm not going to try. But yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't bet on, maybe the director will be completely unlike all his other productions is necessarily a good thing to bet on.
Sure. Well,
he was probably hired because of those traits, but
Shall we move on to the next panel that they presented?
I will just throw out the point that Bajoran artifact could have been glued back together again, especially with 24th century technology and the wibbly wobbly nature.
And that does timey-wimey stuff with like the Bajoran prophets. I just think it was more of a production department detail than an actual like writer's room plot point. I could be wrong though. I'm fine either way. I'm happy either way.
It could be an in-universe.
No. There's definitely a preference because if we go to the wormhole aliens, there's going to be a DS9 scene. You can't go to the Bajoran wormhole without having at least a couple of shots.
I'm all for that. I'm all for my DS9.
Yeah, I know. I can see you don't want to get your hopes up, but if we go there, there's going to be some at least a little bit of DS9.
Can we talk about the second panel that they did over First Contact Day? It was I think it was actually called Revisiting Star Trek First Contact with the Star Trek First Contact director, Jonathan Frakes. We all know as William Riker, but also, star Patrick Stewart, Brent Spiner, and Borg Queen Alice Krieg. They talk about that movie. I assume all really like that movie. Brian, I know you don't like it as much as I do. It's something that we already talked about. We did like a whole Tex-Trek podcast over that.
Yeah, I don't. But I feel
like
that's my sentiment for Wrath of Khan. Don't hate me, but
yeah, no. Yeah, like I understand both y'all's stances on these movies, but there's not a ton to talk about on that. So shall we just move on to the next topic after that? They did a panel called First Contacts, hosted by LeVar Burton's daughter, Mika Burton. And she had on board Gersha Phillips, who is the costume designer for Star Trek Discovery. They had Jason Zimmerman, who is the special effects head on Discovery and Picard. They had Neville Page, who is the makeup designer. They had James Mackison, who is like the makeup applier, or on Picard at least. So I thought that was like kind of a cool panel. I thought it was cool to see James Mackinson. We typically have seen what's that other dude's name? Glenn Hedrick. But I guess Glenn Hedrick does Discovery. Yeah, the tattooed guy. He does Discovery. This guy James Mackinson does Picard. What I didn't know about James Mackinson is that he actually worked under Michael Westmore under the Berman era Star Trek. So, like, good for him. You actually see in this image, for those of you watching live, he has some Emmys hanging up on the wall behind him. So, cool to see that. I'm glad there's a dude named Zimmerman working in the Star Trek production, by the way. And it was cool just to hear them talk about how the different departments have to work together, like makeup and alien design and costume design and stuff like that, and hearing Gersha Phillips say like, oh yeah, we made like these new Starfleet uniforms, but then we figured out they look really ugly on the Discovery sets, so we had to update them again for season 4 and stuff like that. But other than that, I didn't have much on this. Do you have anything to add, or let me know if we need to move on to the next panel?
I have one small thing to say, is that this panel reminds me a lot of the bonus features that we get on those Discovery Blu-rays. Mm-hmm. And I would say that even as not the biggest fan of Discovery, I think that these are some of the most interesting featurettes that they have in the bonus things. Like every time they go behind the scenes and they start talking to all of these very, very amazing artists that, they show you how they apply the makeup, and they show you how they design and create all of these things. The craft is so amazing to me. I love it. So
I agree.
A fun panel.
Say what you will about like modern Star Trek, but they put a lot of money and a lot of thought into all the things they're doing. If you agree with it or not, they try. You cannot deny.
Yeah, it's like
they consistently try.
You might not agree with certain aesthetic, I suppose, choices, like sort of creative decisions, but you can really tell that there's a lot of love and there's a lot of professionalism going into like the creation of everything that's on screen.
Like those season 1 Discovery Klingons that we all hated, and I was very vocal about how much I hated them. They legitimately tried to put a lot of thought and effort into that, though. Like, let's be real. They talk about like oh yeah, like we designed the bathless to look like this, and we wanted like the Klingon armor to look like this because we wanted the culture to represent this. And it's like they really, really, really fucking tried.
Yeah. Those were not lazy Klingons. That was not, I can't be bothered to get the right, whether it's a D7 or a Katinga, it doesn't make a difference. They're all the same. No, they do Klingons use warbirds, or is that only Romulan? No, they were very, very, putting loads of effort and creativity up there on the screen. So.
Well, let's move on to the next panel. They had a Women in Motion panel starring Sonequa Martin Green, Michelle Hurd, Don Lewis, and Issa Briones. This was to promote both Discovery Season 4. We got a trailer for that. We'll get into that in just a second, but they also talked about the Nichelle Nichols documentary Women in Motion that is dropping on Paramount Plus on June 3rd. And I would like to announce right now that Tex-Trek will be reviewing that. The plan is to do a review the day after on June 4th. We will talk about that documentary. I have not watched it yet. I'm going to wait until it comes out on Paramount Plus, watch it then, and then talk about it. But that's about Nichelle Nichols and the work that she did with NASA and bringing diversity into NASA. I don't know much about it, so we'll talk about it then. But yeah, like here that we get a good look at Discovery Season 4. I'm just going to go ahead and run through the teaser trailer we got for that, and then we'll talk about it with Brian and Sean. But basically, the things that stood out to me, we get some colorful uniforms. They actually have like some blue and gold and red uniforms in this Discovery Season 4 teaser. We see some timey-wimey spatial anomalies, which I was less excited about. But yeah, something turns like the gravity upside down on a cargo bay and causes a lot of chaos. And Stamets explains to us that there's an anomaly 5 light years wide, and it's causing this. We see who I think is the Federation president, and she's a Cardassian human hybrid based on the images in the teaser trailer. We see more of Adira and Gray. We see Saru in a non-Federation role. We see some more of the Kowat Malat, and it looks like maybe Tilly and Burnham they have like those samurai katanas of the Kowat Malat, so I don't know if like they join up temporarily. And we see like a few images that look to me like they might be the AR wall, like they use on the other Star franchise with their Mandalorian show, like the virtual backgrounds. We see some very, very cool images on what is formerly known as Planet Vulcan that reminded me of Star Trek 3. We see some cool action of like Burnham and Book running around, and the trailer kind of ends with a Kelpian in a red command uniform holding hands with Burnham. So I'm like, is Saru coming back as like the first officer? And also Grudge the cat is still around in Season 4. They wanted to remind us that Grudge is still there. Brian,
there's an
Sean,
image
what do y'all
there's
think?
there's an image of Saru in red uniform on the bridge in the background.
Oh, I missed that. Well, okay, Sean just made me look like an idiot because I don't have a screenshot of that. But
I can try and look for one, but it's
thank you for
it's
letting
not
me know.
me. I can't take credit for that. It's our friend Jörg Hilbrandt on Twitter that notices every single detail. But he's like really in the background, so I don't know if he's just there for like a mission, or if they give him like an acting captain or an acting first officer kind of role.
Wait a second.
I don't know.
It's not this.
There he is.
What you're talking about right here?
Yeah, there he is.
Okay. Oh yeah, maybe.
I mean, I'm assuming that's Saru.
It certainly looks pretty Saru-ish in shape.
It looks like a Kelpian.
Yeah. At least it certainly looks very Kelpian, and with the command rank as well, kind of points to Saru. So Obviously the uniforms are I think the uniforms for me were the biggest surprise of the trailer. I mean, not mind-blowingly surprised, but at least that was the thing I kept that I kept thinking about when I watched it. And maybe that means it's not a good teaser if I'm worried about the costuming. But
I was kind of in the same boat as you. I mean, I like these uniforms. I'm glad that they're colorful. I'm glad they've moved on past the Nazi gray. But yeah, like when these gray uniforms turned like red and blue and gold, it became clear like they're not as form-fitting. They kind of don't look as good with color, but I still consider them like an improvement. So I don't know. It's like a mixed bag with me, but I'm always picky with Starfleet uniforms. I'm weird. There's no Starfleet uniform that I flat out love. Like I feel like I have criticisms about every one of them. So
the Voyager ones are great until you see like a full shot, and then you have the legs, and it's like, ooh,
it's too much black. It's a little too much black for me. I want more color.
See, I think the Voyager uniforms are probably my faves, but they have just the right amount of looking official and looking colorful for me. But I think I mean the uniforms are going to take. I guess they're so colorful they harken back to the original series. But then I start trying to code everyone with the original series scheme of red is operations and gold is command, which is completely reversed in this century and many other centuries. So I have to admit that I was suffering from a little bit of uniform disorientation because they look so TOS-y in their amount of color, but the scheme was so clearly 24th century and beyond. The other thing I want to say, go back to that shot there. Yes. The bridge was designed to look good or those old blue uniforms were designed to look good together. I don't know if this super bright, colorful uniforms go with this incredibly cool colored and cool, like in a, blue icy kind of way. I feel like,
I agree, but I think this is better than the grays.
Oh yeah, I think I'm not saying I don't like the uniforms. I'm thinking we need to update our computer displays so that they are colorful enough to complement these uniforms, like the TOS bridge, which was very colorful. And so, yeah, I think they just need to change some of the lights on the consoles, put some yellows and reds in those lights, I think, and it'll look fine. But at this point, looking at this bridge, it feels like this bridge is all cold and the uniforms are all warm, and it feels I don't know, off aesthetically. And I'm no expert in that stuff, so maybe I'm just wrong and it'll look fine on screen, but that's what I kept feeling when I look at it. Is it looks like these uniforms came out of a different show. And also the science uniforms look even more like the Earth Force Babylon 5 uniforms than they did before. And I thought they looked a little like Earth Force Babylon 5 in the grays, but this season, the science ones really look like Babylon 5 uniforms.
I feel horrible because I ever since Discovery began, I think my favorite Discovery uniforms have been the original ones, the blue ones that they had. I thought that they worked well as like a continuation of what Enterprise did. But then of course I was still conflicted because they were supposed to be set around the TOS era, and of course, they were completely different. So, and then now I feel like an asshole because every time they come out with a new uniform, I'm like, And so, like, the gray ones are like, oh, they look really cool, in Starfleet headquarters. But as soon as they put them on the bridge, I was like, oh, no. And these ones, I feel like I've been asking for colors. And then, like, these ones, I don't know. I'm not sold on it. I think you might be right. I think they might have to, like, if they completely lit up the bridge, and instead of having, like, that black or that brownish and that blue in the background, if the bridge was, like, kind of white, kind of, like, clear, and everything was kind of bright and happy, if it resembled what the Starfleet headquarters of the 32nd century looks like, maybe then they would fit that a bit better.
And that would not be an expensive thing. You just paint the thing white and throw in some more lighting, and it would look fine. You don't have, Or you could go for, I think the TOS colors work well with the TOS bridge scheme, which was obviously black and gray, but with lots of colorful highlights. The computer screens were green and yellow and red, and the control panels were green, were all multicolored, and there was red trim and red doors to go with it. And so, yeah, I kind of feel like the uniforms want, either that white aesthetic that you were talking about, or something more colorful like the 60s version.
Ironically, this kind of bridge color, it kind of reminds me of Voyager, because Voyager, when you look at all these bridges, Voyager becomes really dark and really blue.
Yeah,
compared to like
when
TNG.
They went to Red Alert, when Voyager went to Red Alert, it got dark. But the thing is, I've always enjoyed the Discovery production design. I just have often felt it lacked color. I always talked about it as like, I like the way things are shaped and the way things look. I just wish it was more than blue and gray and silver.
Jill says turn up
and gold in there.
Jill says turn up the damn lights. It's even darker than season 1.
Yeah.
Well, there's also like the thing that concerns me is that we're dealing with another spatial anomaly. We get
that looks like Saru, but in yellow now.
No, this is Detmer and Owasakan.
Oh, is that Detmer?
Yeah, they're like flying out of their seats when like the gravity goes crazy, and then there's like,
I'm not crazy about that, to be honest.
But it gives them an excuse to
cargo bay that has like upside down gravity, and
it'll give them an excuse to turn the camera upside down, which they've never done on this show before.
Well, they've always wanted an excuse for that, so now they have one. Stamets explains it's a gravitational distortion that's 5 light years wide, and it can like strike anywhere. And the Federation president, who I think is the Federation president, she says that it's both like a threat to Federation and non-Federation worlds alike. It is strangely similar to the burn in season 3, and they talk about it a lot in this trailer. Makes me think it's going to get a big spotlight in the season 4 story, or at least the first half of the season 4 story. I'm not crazy about that. What do y'all think about it?
For me, execution is everything. This could be amazing, or it could just be a reboot of the Red Angel / Burn, and we're just kind of following around, picking up weird clues. But if if it does different, if the warping gravity causes radically different problems in different areas of space, in each story we have to fix a very different problem than the last episode, that was, that could be fun. I always enjoy watching zero gravity in my space shows and recognize that it doesn't happen because they don't very often, because most shows and movies don't want to spend that kind of money to make it happen. So
Star Trek 6 and DS9.
Yeah.
And even DS9 when we had Melora join the show.
Though even that was like what, one scene or something, or two scenes. So
we have a new contributor on the panel now. We are joined by Robbie of the famous Earl Grey Trekkie channel. Robbie, how are you doing?
Hiya. I'm good. I'm really good after the Star Trek news.
Well, I'm glad you could make it here today to talk about this with us. But Brian, sorry to interrupt. Please continue.
Oh, I pretty much finished my point there. That was so.
Well, Robbie, then, since you're just coming on board the ship right now, you've just beamed aboard, stepping off of the transporter pad. Tell us, what was your reaction to the season 4 Discovery teaser trailer?
Overall, I quite liked it. I liked the visuals, and the production quality looks great. But I was a little disappointed. I know it's just a teaser, but it kind of screamed generic a bit to me, and I hope that the gravimetric distortion isn't a mystery box style storyline again.
Yeah, I hope there's definitely some other meaty material for us to chew on beyond. Let's unravel this weird spatial anomaly mystery, like we did in season 3. But
to some degree,
looks so cool. Navarre looks so cool when they show like that wide shot, like the sun setting in the mountains, and it's very like Star Trek 3. And I'm like, oh, they're using that AR wall from The Mandalorian, where they can have like the virtual backgrounds, and it looks really good. So
yeah.
I'm kind of excited for that part of it.
Well, I'm always down for doing something with the Vulcanoids. So, one of my big complaints last season was we didn't beam down. So, if this
they can correct that now, and it looks like looks like we will see Navarre. We will have characters walking around on the ground level of Navarre of the planet.
Yep.
The possibly president of the Federation says something to the effect of it's a threat for like all Federation and people that are not Federation, which gives me like a slither of hope. And I know people are going to hate me for saying this, but I would like to go back to the Emerald Chain. And as Brian said before, it's all about execution. I would like to explore the ramifications and the possibilities of an alliance between the Federation and the Emerald Chain, and like the implications that has, and go through like the ethical, I suppose, discussion that could bring. I think that would be fun, because the Emerald Chain is implied to be completely gone, but that doesn't make sense, considering what was her name? Osira was supposed to be just one of the ministries, so maybe they'll explore that.
And I mean, what does gone mean? I mean, these are the sorts of organizations that spring up when governments are gone. So if the government of the Emerald Chain is gone, that just means there's a whole bunch of other things springing up in their stead, taking those resources and people and ships and doing their own probably nefarious things with them.
And I mean, it looks like the Cardassian military is still doing shitty shit in Lower Decks season 2 that we'll talk about in a little bit. So like if they're still around, like abducting people with 4 lights, like Chain of Command Part 2 style, they're still doing that after the Dominion War. It's like, okay, come on, Star Trek. Like, they clearly don't want to evolve some of these people.
That's the go-to abduction thing. You got to have those 4 lights.
Yeah. I do see how you could have some fun making jokes about that, but yes. I did want to say I'm so glad they felt Grudge was important enough to stick in the teaser.
He's in like a really weird sequence. It's all like these action shots of like explosions and people like running around and stuff. And they have like a shot of like Grudge like looking around.
Yeah, it's not even like an action shot. He's just kind of sitting there, It
felt very ceremonious of like the character. Like they clearly like the trailer editor clearly likes Grudge.
Yeah. Well, and I love that they stick it in the middle of an action sequence too. Just and cute kitties.
And I included it here as a talking point in the stream and podcast because I knew people want to talk about Grudge, and so who am I to deny anyone?
Yes, the overlap between sci-fi nerds and cat lovers is pretty strong in my experience. But
Brian, Sean, Robbie, anything else on Picard? Or, I'm sorry, not Picard. On Discovery season 4 before we move on.
Just that Discovery's probably my favorite of these new Treks, but based on these teasers, I'm excited about Discovery season 4, but I'm a little more excited about Picard for the first time. So,
well, we haven't had any Picard in a while. It's been a year or so. And also, like, does anyone plan on catching the Women in Motion documentary? I'm going to watch it on Paramount Plus June 3rd. I know availability might vary, but I'm really looking forward to that. What about y'all?
I hope to check it out. Yeah, I'm curious.
Brian, you should watch it that day and then review it with us the following day.
Absolutely. So I'm always up for some NASA stuff.
I don't know if our Kiwi exiled to Canada or our,
I will watch it as soon as possible.
Scottish man. I don't know when y'all will be able to see it or where you can see it, but
we'll find a way.
Whenever I can, I'll be watching it. because it's very interesting to find out just about how much Nichelle Nichols impacted NASA.
Yeah, and our good friend Jill47 says that Women in Motion is a must-watch.
Yeah.
So that's the strongest endorsement I could imagine, is when Jill is on board. But we will move on to the next panel after the Women in Motion panel. They had a Star Trek Second Contact panel, which was focused on the comedy in Star Trek. It featured host Will Wheaton, but also Brent Spiner, Jonathan Frakes, Mike McMahon, and Paul F. Tompkins. And if you're like, who is Paul F. Tompkins again? He's on the what's the podcast called?
The Pod Directive.
The Pod Directive, and he's on there with a Mariner voice actor Tawny Newsome, and he also does the voice of the therapist on the USS Cerrito in Star Trek Lower Decks. What is it? What's his name? Dr. Maglimo? Is that it? Like the bird alien? Something like that. Apparently no one else.
I don't remember his name, but he was great. I love that character.
Well, this is really cool because not only do we get to, I mean, for me, it was exciting to hear like Mike McMahon like nerd out. We all know he's a huge TNG fan. Just like see him like be in a panel with Will Wheaton, Brent Spiner, Jonathan Frakes. Mike McMahon like is a big fucking nerd for Next Generation. So it was so like fun, like see him like get to hang out with them. But let me just run through the teaser trailer they dropped for Lower Decks real quick, because we got a few things in that. We see a Miranda class starship, like the Reliant, but it's the USS Macduff. Really good job on the registry number, making it close to 1864. They give it a 1877. We see a Magato, like in TOS, which is like attacking some Denobulan looking characters. So some Enterprise reference there. We see a Mariner in a Anbu Itsu, whatever you call it, fucking martial arts uniform. It's like a rainbow god Commander Ransom, which is really weird and interesting. We see maybe like a dilithium mine or something underground, but the Starfleet characters fighting off some dudes in helmets, which look a lot like the.
It reminds me of a Halo mission.
No, they look like the Packlids that we saw at the end of Lower Deck Season 1. They have like the same helmets.
Oh, it is the Packlids. Like, you're right.
Are they going to make
kicking ass with like some Cardassians in the room with 4 lights? And we see Mariner in the brig, her favorite place to be, and we get like what my good friend Dave calls coked up Riker, talking about like this jam session has too many licks and not enough comps, and screaming Boimler on board of the Titan, which is getting attacked by aliens as they enter a wormhole or whatever it is. August 12th is the release date. New Star Trek returns August 12th with Lower Deck Season 2. What did y'all think about the Second Contact panel and the Lower Deck Season 2 teaser trailer?
I thought it was a really sweet but short teaser, even though it was just 30 seconds. We saw a lot of images, and it was quite thrilling. And I was happy to see some Denobulans, even if it's just a cameo, because I love Phlox. He's my favorite Doctor, and I bet some of these shots are probably in the holodeck.
Well, the thing is with the Denobulans is we get them in Enterprise, like right at the end of the Berman era, and then the Berman era comes to an end, and it's like, okay, well, that was 2005. We just got this new species in 2004. They're kind of like fundamental to the foundation of the Federation, or at least we think so. But we don't get to see any more of them because there were no Star Trek shows from 2005 until 2017. And there were only 3 movies. None of them showcased them. So yeah, it feels like the Denobulans never got their due. They're also like really interesting with like how Phlox described their marriage relationships. And I guess today it's probably best to like translate that to like kind of like modern polyamory and like you have multiple partners and how that works. So yeah, I feel like the Denobulans need some spotlight. I am thankful that a guy like Mike McMahon wants to shine that spotlight on people like the Denobulans.
Yeah, I do think they'll give an explanation for their lack of appearance, or is it just going to be like the Andorians in the Berman era? We just didn't happen to have any cameras pointed at them for a while.
No, they were there. They were there on Ryza and Captain's Holiday. There was one, anyways. It was the worst fucking Andorian I've ever seen, but it was there.
Well, yes, but I mean, my point, you get my point, that it doesn't appear that there was some big reason why the Andorians disappeared in the 24th century. It's just like, we didn't happen to see them.
You know, like all those shots on DS9 where it shows like some Pacleds and Cardassians and Uridians like walking around on the promenade. It's like if the camera panned over just like a little bit, there'd be like some Denobulans walking around too.
Yeah.
That's my interpretation, anyways.
Yeah, that is certainly the most obvious interpretation, I think, is that they're there. We just didn't see them. But I'm
more excited about the Magato, to be honest, than the Denobulans.
Is that Tree from the Magato episode too? The one with the funny?
Yeah, has like these onion looking things on it. God damn.
Yeah, it really looks like something 60s. Yeah, it looks like something 60s Star Trek would have done. They just take a regular old tree and hang a few of these funny things off of it that are brightly, primarily colored, so that the camera will they'll really highlight. Look at how weird this tree is. It's got these bright colored things on it. I thought has occurred to me, would it be amusing if the Pacleds became the reoccurring big bad for Lower Decks?
That's what they're being set up to be.
Yeah, like kind of like how the Borg did for the second half of Voyager.
It makes
kind
sense
of like the Romulans in TNG. This is the big bad for Lower Decks, is that the Pacleds keep showing up.
You have like the dumb shit aliens for the dumb shit show, and I say that as a compliment. I love Lower Decks. I love Lower Decks, but it's the dumb shit Star Trek.
They fit so naturally together, right?
Yeah, it's like chocolate and
peanut butter. Cool. I love that. I love the idea of like, let's make the Pacleds a more legitimate threat, and let's do it in our stupid little cartoon show. It's all about being a stupid little cartoon show. To me, that is like an obvious fucking choice. And yeah, Mike McMahon probably knows. He's like, okay, I'm working on a Star Trek show, but I also have like Terry Matalas on Picard doing a show. I have Michelle Paradise on Discovery doing a show. Like all these people on Strange New Worlds. You have like what's his name? Akiva. What's his name?
Akiva Goldsman.
Yeah.
Akiva Goldsman. All these people on Strange New Worlds. So you got Mike McMahon. Like, okay, like I know, like none of them want to use the Pacleds as a big bad on their show, so they're mine. I get them. I'm gonna do something good with them.
Yeah. Well, they do dovetail nicely. I mean, you could also do the Cardassians in a post-Dominion War setting. Both of them are the sort of aliens that feel like their day is either done or they're never going to have their day. And that's exactly what Second Contact and following up on what got left behind by the bigger, more prestigious Star Trek shows is philosophically. It's the overlooked, okay, we beat the Cardassians. Now we don't have to worry about them anymore. You could absolutely see that being a thing. And the Pacleds, they're never going to be a big threat. Not now that we all know to be a little wary whenever they show up. So
there's one thing I want to point out about the Second Contact panel they did, and I think it was here that Jonathan Frakes made this point. It might have been earlier during the revisiting Star Trek First Contact panel, but I think it was here in the Second Contact panel where they were talking about, the use of comedy in Star Trek, which I think, TOS used well, DS9 used well. I think Lower Decks has found kind of a new way to use it well. But Jonathan Frakes mentions the moment in Star Trek First Contact, the movie, where Picard asked Data to turn off his emotion chip, and Data is like, done so sir. And then Picard's like, oh, Data, sometimes I envy you. And we get like that cool, like, laugh out loud moment. I remember seeing that in the theater in 1996 and people laughing out loud. And what Jonathan Frakes says here is that, you know, the way that you structure these types of stories, where you structure these, is you don't have it just be like a consistent build up, you know, like tension, and then like your big dramatic moment. The way that you do it is very like musical, you know, like in a song, you have like a bit of music come around. It's like, you know, like a build up to something, and then, you know, it cycles back. You have like that funny moment and it resets the tension, and then you can have it ratchet back up again, and then something, you know, with levity or whatever happens, and you reset it, and then you ratchet it back up again, and eventually you build up to like your big climax. But he was talking about, like, you know, making a movie, it's more musical, where like you build it up bit by bit instead of like a consistent build up. And I thought that was like an amazing thing. That's something like I've kind of been aware of for a long time, but I had never heard it articulated by a jazz musician / actor / director. And so hearing Frakes explain it like that, I was like, oh, okay, I'm going to steal that description and I'm going to use that from now on when I talk about like movies and stuff in the future. I thought that was like really cool. And just seeing, like, again, like Mike McMahon, Paul F. Tompkins, big fans of the show, get to like nerd out and joke around with these actors and stuff. And Brent Spiner, all the funny stuff he has to say. That was all really cool.
Yeah. There certainly is that. I mean, I don't know, Lower Decks' use of comedy is not really to relieve tension. It's more like the tension relieves the comedy every now and then. Like, oh, wait, things are serious suddenly. Yeah. So this is one of those.
Not to interrupt you, Brian, but just real quick, like something else that McMahon said that made a lot of sense to me. Because I've always kind of like struggled with Lower Decks. I genuinely like the show. I've been very positive to it, but just stuff like some of the jokes we see in this trailer, like Mariner saying like, "Oh, are you ready to do some sci-fi stuff?" Sean, you pointed that out as being like kind of.
Yes, I agree. Well, so Jill's face is in the comments. They're saying that Jill's face is blocking Robbie's face.
Yes, there's a great deal of justice for Robbie and stuff getting posted.
Okay, hold on.
I know exactly what you're going to say, and you're correct. I enjoy Lower Decks' comedy. I just think that sometimes there are lines that don't need to be crossed in, like, for example, Solar Opposites, because it's very meta, but this is still a Star Trek show. So I don't like it when people say sci-fi. The thing that they did with like the TOS and how Ransom uses that.
Those old scientists.
That was clever enough for it to work well, I found. But the fact that she literally says sci-fi didn't work for me.
Well, and
here's my.
And I know it's small. I know it's nothing, but yeah.
But this helped me when I heard Mike McMahon say this. Is that this has to be both a Star Trek show and it also has to be like a modern day animated comedy. And then like I kind of understood. I was like, okay, there's going to be things in Lower Decks that I don't like, but it needs to be like a modern day animated comedy at the same time. And that kind of helps me like make my peace with. And again, like I love the show. There's things I don't like about it, but I have to accept that. Like, yeah, for me and to enjoy this show, I have to pay the price of admission. It's going to be both a Star Trek show and it's going to be a modern day 2021 animated comedy show. And that's just how it is.
Enterprise came out in the 2000s. And so, like, if you want to enjoy some of the different, I suppose, storytelling directions they took and etc., you also have to accept like a season finale with Archer running in slow motion in front of an explosion because it's the 2000s.
Yeah, they were competing with like 24 and CSI and stuff like that.
You have to every Star Trek is a product of its own time, and so it has the flaws of its time. And yeah, now that we have like these different styles of Star Trek all at once, each of them are going to be very specific to, like, I suppose, the style that they want to be in or that they want to show us. So yeah, I get it. Lower Decks is going to be, but Mike McMahon has a creative outlet, Solar Opposites, where he can do all of the stuff that doesn't work in Star Trek. So
yeah, I guess I Oh, what was I going to say? I would point out they've established that Mariner is a big fan of the history of Starfleet through her quotation of various events from the 23rd century and the 22nd century. So, okay, that's what she's into. Fine. But now it turns out she's also into ancient terminology, ancient science fiction, because are they still using the word sci-fi in the 24th century? I mean, I'm sure they still have science fiction, but is that term still being thrown around?
Yeah,
and
is
she also
she's the same person that like goes into a bar and says like, "Hey, what's up, aliens?" or something like that.
Yeah,
in, like the second episode of the show.
Yeah,
so it doesn't look a little
racist, you
like,
speciesist.
You can tell, like, oh yeah, like these are lines that aren't really thought of in a writer's room, but they're more like Tawny Newsome's ad-libbing.
Yeah.
And I also have to preface that with say, like, I'm in love with Tawny Newsome. Like, I would like leave everything in my life behind to like run off and marry her. And I'm like 100% in love with her. I think she's like a fantastic person. She's like a fantastic voice actress, and she's like perfect to play Beckett Mariner. But yeah, like there's definitely like moments I get in both season 1 and both in like the season 2 trailer where it's like, yeah, this is kind of like more catering to her ad-libbing ability than it is to like the writing of the character, if you know what I mean. Right?
Do you like Jonathan Frakes' ad-libbing?
Yeah, Jonathan Frakes is great as his what Dave calls a coked up Riker. Dave's not a big fan of Lower Decks, but he's commented on like how like Jonathan Frakes always sounds like he's a bit like cocained up, and I thought that when I was watching this trailer actually, and I gotta say like I love the show like leading into like the jazz musician Riker, where he's like, this jam session has too many licks, not enough comps. Like, I kind of like that. I like that's something that is unique to Riker. It's true to the character. It plays well into like what we've seen in the past canon, and it works with Jonathan Frakes' new performance delivery of that dialogue. So I like that. I like the way that Lower Decks writes Captain Riker.
I mean, I guess if he talks like that all the time, I'm going to hate it. But, I need to, if everything is like a music joke and he's doing music puns all the time or something, that's going to get old fast. But
you would look like this, Brian.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, if I sometimes have a problem with Lower Decks, it feels like I'm being attacked with the character of Bloimler. With this one snapshot, I refuse to judge the entire thing as to what's it going to be like on the Titan based off that one little.
It'll only be a few
moment.
episodes, I'm assuming, though. It'll only be like 2 or 3 episodes on the Titan, and Boimler will get somehow ejected, or he'll want to go back to the Cerritos with his friends or something.
Yeah,
that's
the same impression I'm under, though they will eventually reunite their four characters.
Yeah, what struck me as slightly odd is the trailer teaser seems to be giving us the impression that Boimler is finding life aboard the Titan to be way more dangerous and crazy than it was aboard the Cerritos. And I'm just not sure if I buy that, having watched a whole season of life aboard the Cerritos, which seemed to generally be as dangerous, if not significantly more dangerous per episode than any other Star Trek series.
Well, maybe he's a guy who's always like that.
Yeah. Maybe he's just, he's always going to complain about the situation he's in wherever you put him. And so that could be it. But the way the trailer sets up, everyone's like, oh, I bet he's having so much fun. He's like, oh my God, with this subtext of, I want to go home underneath that. And I'm like, I don't know if they can really sell me that the Titan is more dangerous than the Cerritos, given what they have laid out so far. Yeah. Now, I suppose if they were going to do something crazy, like the Titan is going to be dropped through a one-shot wormhole to Andromeda or something, and it won't be back for 10 years. Then I could see Boimler saying, oh, no, I don't want to be on board that mission. Get me off this ship.
No, that mission sucks. No one wants to be on that mission. I don't think they're doing that.
No, I'm just if there was some big thing that was going to be like, oh, you could see why Boimler.
I love that Brian thought that out enough to make it fit into Picard. Where Brian was like, "Well, it can't be long enough to like keep Riker and Troy away from Picard." So
yeah.
I love that. Like I can see like your mind working around that.
Yeah,
but no, like I don't know what they're doing with Riker and the Titan, but I think they will eventually hit the reset button. We'll put Boimler back onto the Cerritos.
Of all the things that Lower Decks did that people could consider fan service, because there's a big difference between like fan service and just like expanding the universe. I do think that the Titan and Captain Riker is the most fan service-y. And I think that they did this just because they really wanted to have the Titan on screen, and they wanted Mike McMahon being a big nerd, a TNG nerd, wanted his Riker.
If you're familiar with the Star Trek timeline, like okay, the Enterprise E is flying around right now with Picard, and the Titan is flying around with Riker. And depending on how you feel about the novels, the Voyager might be flying around with Chakotay. So it's like, out of all of those options, what do you want to show on your show? And he chose the Titan, which is probably what I would have picked, to be honest.
Yeah.
That's the one I would have picked.
I had a thought, and this is probably almost certainly nothing. And even if it isn't nothing, it probably will not develop into anything. But you remember how they brought aboard Pike and Spock in season 2 of Discovery as a backdoor pilot to launch another series? And now we're bringing
a Titan show.
Is this a backdoor pilot for a Titan show? I don't think they could make it a comedy, but maybe they could do a more serious animated series or something.
It's a jazz-related sitcom. It's a jazz-themed sitcom.
I actually think the jazz jokes would get really old really fast.
Yeah. I think you would have to die. You would. I don't think there's room for 2 silly comedy Star Trek series, but you could do an animated Titan series that could be, if it was a little more grounded, could be actually really awesome. So you could bring again because you don't have to worry about the actors aging. You can bring, at least not up to a certain point. You can bring all sorts of people on board the Titan and have them show up and do stuff. So I doubt that's what they're doing, and I doubt even if that is a backdoor pilot, the chances of them picking it up seem pretty remote, given that they've got 2 animated series going already. But I just felt like there's a certain pattern here developing.
It was also a pattern of Jonathan Frakes being kind of a whore and being on every Star Trek show that has existed since he got the job back in 1987.
He can easily be in Prodigy now. Timeline-wise, he can easily be in Prodigy as well.
But yeah, they hired this man in 1987 to be in Star Trek, and he has appeared on every Star Trek show made in the last 34 years since then.
Well,
he has never said no.
He's a good man.
Yes,
amazing. Put him as an alien. Put him as an alien in Strange New Worlds too.
And we have a launch date of season. I'm sorry. We have a launch date for season 2. It is August 12th. So Tex-Trek will be resuming weekly reviews of new Star Trek in August, about a year after Lower Decks launched last year in 2020. That's exciting. Anything else on Lower Decks season 2, or shall we move on to the next subject? It's okay to say no if you don't have anything to bring up.
I got nothing.
Okay.
I've not got anything.
I'm done.
Last thing I want to point out is that our friend Aaron Harvey, who literally wrote the book on the first Star Trek animated series, pointed out that in this shot of the Star Trek Lower Decks Season 2 teaser trailer, you do see a creature back here that looks very similar to a character in Star Trek Prodigy. So just wanted to point that out to transition us and they talk about the blob kid, the blob creature.
To be fair, looks like a fuzzy blob, and then there's a blob character. Is not a huge leap there.
That's true. That's
anything
true.
that looks
the
like
same
a
species.
I know, but I'm
even if
it's friends with Aaron and wanted to point out this observation he made.
Even if it's not the same character, I do think it would be really cool if all of these creative teams started like communicating, and sharing their ideas as like what new species they're integrating into their shows, so they can all do that. And that seems like something Mike McMahon would do, like go out of his way to talk to the Hageman brothers and be like, hey, what characters you got? Oh, we've got like this. Oh, so I'll put him in my show and like establish him. You know what I mean? That makes sense.
Like if all four of us were doing our own Star Trek show, like I would talk to y'all. Like I'd be like, hey, Brian, what are you doing on your show? Okay, Robbie, what are you doing on your show? Sean, what are you doing on your show? Well, oh, you made a new species for like your blob character. I'm gonna put him in the background of one of my episodes.
So you wouldn't be like, no, only we can use the Borg.
No, I would never be like that. And that's why the Borg went from like a weird place of being they can only be a Next Generation movies to they can only be in Voyager and not be on DS9. That's okay. DS9 didn't need no Borg. His best Trek show with they need okay. Give us like 5 minutes with the Borg in the first episode. Yeah, okay, we're done with them. We don't need them. We're the best.
Yeah,
Trek
well,
show.
they've said they wanted to do the Borg, but I will admit I never noticed the lack of Borg. DS9 was so good, it never occurred to me until well after the show was over that somebody pointed out the Borg never showed up after that first episode. Oh yeah, that's right, they never did.
Yeah, after like the first 5 minutes. But, anyways. Water under the bridge. Let's talk about the final panel from the Star Trek First Contact Day event. We had a really cool panel with Kevin and Dan Hageman. Sorry, my dog's going to be loud because Antonia just came home. This was like an odd time for us to stream because of my birthday and stuff, so you guys have to deal with it. But we had Kevin and Dave Hageman and Kate Mulgrew talking about Star Trek Prodigy. We got a cool look at Captain Janeway. And we got a little bit more information on the show. It's set in the year 2083. It's in the Delta Quadrant. Janeway's a hologram. She's the emergency training hologram. So lots of cool stuff. What do y'all think about this?
Emergency training hologram. That's a all right. I guess when you we need an emergency school. Deploy the emergency school. Or maybe it means she trains people to deal with emergencies. Maybe we've got it backwards. Maybe
we had emergency like medical, emergency command. I don't know. If you need like a hologram to teach like your kids how to run a starship, I don't know.
I mean, I guess it's basically a substitute teacher, but they never call us emergency teachers. So.
That's what I would say from now on. Because like sub sounds like inferior. So I reject that brand. I think instead of like calling you a substitute teacher, you should be like emergency backup special program teacher.
Well, they have been trying to push the guest teacher thing, but I have this feeling that it might have something to do with how they handle the who gets health care and who doesn't. But
well, yeah, when you live in a country that determines your access to healthcare based on your occupation, you get weird shit like that. But enough about that. We're talking about like this future world where such concerns have been bypassed by progress. What do y'all think about this promotional material for Star Trek Prodigy?
I'm really excited to see it. I think Janeway looks brilliant. She reminds me of season 2 Janeway. And I'm wondering if this emergency training Janeway will be exactly like Janeway, or she'll just have only so much of Janeway programmed into her.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I can't figure out her hair. I don't know if it's like the early Voyager Janeway who had like the long hair and a bun.
It's the bun Janeway, I think it is, yeah.
Or is it just like a new, like even shorter hair Janeway? Like I need like a profile picture.
It's the AI artist that like the guy that programmed the AI into the computer system couldn't be bothered with the hair.
Well, they put a woman on the show. We're going to spend a bunch of time talking about how she looks, but to be fair, they haven't given us a lot more to talk about on this show. I have some observations about the uniform that are just that. So it's set 4 years after Nemesis, but it's still got a uniform that went out of style before the Dominion War kicked off.
Yeah, but it's also in the Delta Quadrant, so I think they're dealing with old software. But I don't really get where they got the software. It's like a new updated program of like Janeway training them, but it's not up to date.
This is one of Tuvok's side projects. Tuvok created that side project where he was running simulations of the Maquis taking over the ship.
Maybe
he created like a side Janeway in case Janeway died, and he didn't want to reveal it to anyone. He has like a simulated Janeway running around the bridge.
I did just watch the Voyager episode you're riffing on, the worst case scenario. So sure, why not?
Stole that tick.
It is a good episode. That was a really good one, and I say this as someone who isn't the greatest Voyager fan. So yeah, I don't quite know what's up with the uniform there. Also, there's an alteration. The pants stop at the ankle rather than going all the way down, and that strikes me. But they still put the little slit so that the foot can stick out of the pants. But they don't need the slit because the foot doesn't even start getting going till under the pant leg. So at the moment, I'm going to assume there are some higher res photos out there of it. But at the moment, I'm going to assume that it's a programming glitch and move on. But it does annoy me that the pants are so weird.
Like if you like compare the proportions of like her chin to the width of her eyes to the live action Janeway, it's a little off. So you have to imagine it's under the interpretation of animation, and it's not an exact representation. Yeah. Like Riker does not look the exact same. The proportions of his eyes, like his eyes do not take up this percentage of his face.
But the details of his uniform are either present correctly or just absent entirely, which you would expect in a simplified design. That like the little stripes, the quilting on the shoulder pads are not there, but you can assume they're just not drawing them, whereas they deliberately draw the slits on the pants but then draw them up high. And so I don't know. I'm just mostly trolling you guys, but there's not much else to say. So.
Do you know what I liked about this panel though? Was I think it's Kevin. I think is the older looking Hegeman brother. But when we got to see like his office, it's like very Star Trek inspired. Like he has like some Klingon blood wine. He has some Star Trek comic books. He has a model of the Enterprise refit from the movies. He has a TOS era tricorder. I'm like, okay, this guy like really likes Star Trek. Like, there's no way he just bought all this shit like the last couple of weeks because he knew he was gonna do like this live stream. Like,
Kurtzman sends boxes to all of his people just for the panels. Put all this in the background
because the other people don't have that. The other ones don't have that.
Yeah. I'd also
Mika
say
Mika Burnham didn't have that. She had like a blue wall. She's like, okay, my dad was Geordie. And he painted my bedroom blue. That's all I
don't even have a visor.
Well, I mean, honestly, if you have
Kate Mulgrew doesn't have none of that shit. Like Kate Mulgrew doesn't know what any of that shit. Like if you're like Kate Mulgrew, look at this. This is a bottle of Klingon what? She'd be like, I don't know. If you were like, is it blood wine? She'd be like, I don't know. I ain't never heard of that. Like, no, like that's Kevin Hageman. That's Kevin Hageman, 100%.
Well, to be fair, if you have if you have LeVar Burton in your house, that kind of is the trump card of merch, right? You have an actual Star Trek actor in your collection. You know,
Geordie is your dad.
Yeah. If you don't need any other merch. You've already won at Star Trek merchandise. So
yeah, I'll be real. Like if I was a casting director, if I was like, if I was like in charge of like hiring people for a movie or something, and like Mika Burnham showed up and like LeVar Burton was behind her, and he was like, "Hey, that's my daughter," I'd be like, "Okay, I really want to hire this kid."
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I suppose you could also say the same about Kate Mulgrew when you are the merch. So you also win.
I'm scared Kate Mulgrew will yell at me. So
I sent you a link to a photo. It's like one of the promotional pictures that they had for like early Voyager, I think.
Okay.
And I think that's the kind of Janeway that they're going for, like uniform style and the hair and everything. I don't know if you can bring that up or not, but
yeah, I'll pull it up in a second. But keep talking.
Yeah.
Okay, I was initially a little weirded out by my first initial response when I saw Janeway was like, "Ooh, that looks weird," because I was trying to, I suppose, like equate it to what I know Janeway and now what I know like Kate Mulgrew looks like and all of that. But then once I saw it next to all of the other characters, it's like, okay, so there's the design aesthetic, it all matches together very well. And I still can't, like, this is not a 2D animation show. This is like a 3D animated show. So everything we're getting here is like, this all seems painted. Like, this all seems, I don't know, it's very peculiar. It looks beautiful, to be honest.
Yeah, it reminds me
I still don't know how it's going to work.
The other Star franchise, like Clone Wars or Rebels. It's kind of that style.
Yeah, I mean, you're as with all this 3D animation, when you do the humans, you don't want to fall into the creepy, uncanny valley, so you have to make them look a bit cartoonish to avoid that. So they literally look less creepy because they look less human. So
and this is well handled. This isn't too uncanny valley. You get a bit of it, but it is exaggerated enough in the sense it's cartoonified enough to balance that out.
And yet it's no doubt who you're looking at. Even if I didn't know, if this was the announcement, was just they put this poster out of all of them standing in a row, I would say that looks a hell of a lot like Janeway in the middle, even though she's not wearing a captain's rank, So yeah, it gets the point across.
Robbie, what did you think about Janeway in the Star Trek Prodigy promotional material?
I thought she looked a bit taller than usual. I also noticed that her badge was a bit different. It doesn't have the gold rim. It's all kind of silver. I also really like the uniform. It looks like fabric. I'm pleased with how she looks.
Isn't the undershirt supposed to be purple and not gray?
Isn't that the low quality that did that?
I think they always look gray to me, but yeah, I think they are actually some sort of gray lavender thing. But in most of the lighting and setups I've seen on DS9 and Voyager, they always read as gray on screen. So it didn't bother me for a moment that it looked gray, because that's the color it looks like when I see it. Just like Kirk's original shirt is actually a sort of apple green, but looks yellow.
Gold. Yeah,
it looks gold. So
she still has her coffee mug.
Yeah, I'm guessing that's the same way that the didn't the EMH repair hologram also have that white jacket that Zimmerman wears?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So, they personalize these things a bit.
Brian, we were talking how, like, if there was a hologram of me, it would probably be like drinking beer instead of like drinking coffee. So.
And it wouldn't be a training hologram.
I don't know what the fuck it would be. It'd be like a father.
It's an emergency podcasting
hologram. Yeah, you wouldn't have the teacher drinking. That's
the emergency podcast hologram.
Emergency podcast.
It'd be like you run like your whole hologram program. Like you go like do like your whole fucking school drill in the hologram program, and then I'd be like the hologram like pops up to like criticize what you did and be like, okay, we're gonna analyze everything this hologram or this person just did on the holodeck, and like we're gonna like rank it and talk about, we're gonna like deep analyze every little aspect of what they did,
and we're gonna give extra credit for. And he's going to give extra credit for Easter eggs. So
yeah, like a Gorn egg segment, all that shit. But that's all I got. Out of you three gentlemen, what do you have to add to the Prodigy discussion? I have one final thing. Actually, I have one final thing, but I'll let y'all go first.
Excited. I'm very excited. It is the show that I'm the most intrigued by because we don't know anything really about it.
Not much at all. Delta Quadrant 2083, not much.
It still doesn't feel that Star Trek, even if there's a Starfleet uniform now in the picture.
I suspect the ship will probably look very Starfleet as well.
But yeah, I'm just I in the Hageman brothers I trust.
Well, they did say, the Hageman brothers did say that one of these characters is connected deeply to the original series. I interpreted that to be okay, maybe it's the robot. I thought it might have been that like this like short shit motherfucker right here is actually a Tellarite, as our friend Aaron Harvey has suggested that this dude second to the left.
For me, he will now forevermore be short shit.
That's what I call him. I mean, he's like a little short, fat motherfucker.
Short shit.
What were you thinking, Robbie?
I know that he said TOS, but I was imagining that maybe the rock creature is maybe the abandoned one from Star Trek V.
Yeah. This dude, this rock creature, I call him Vasquez Jr. And that's a possibility. He's connected to the rock people of Star Trek V in the deleted scene, at least. Wow. I mean, who knows who it could be? But if I had to guess, my first guess would be short shit. My second guess would be Vasquez Jr.
This guy, this big rock man is like the miners finally found a way to mate with the Horta, and so there was like a crossbreed species thing going on over generations and generations.
So you can be like, I can mine the rock, and I am the rock.
You must be one with the mountain.
Yeah, and that species, they're like neither female nor male. It's just now and then he has to go off and lay like a couple hundred perfectly round eggs.
And on a more serious note, I actually like what I'm hearing about the premise for this show quite a bit. The idea of a bunch of non-Starfleet or the ragtag mishmatched group of kids stuck on a Starfleet ship. Yeah, stuck on a Starfleet ship, presumably in a dangerous area of space, with Janeway able to advise, but I'm guessing that she's not actually in charge. Maybe she is. I don't know. Training.
Have like just like contractually, just thinking like how like these things work. I think Kate Mulgrew has negotiated like a small part, but she still gets paid like X amount in every episode. So she'll have like a small part in every episode, and she'll get paid like per episode.
Is my point to work? Is she literally going to be a school teacher, which is to say she's kind of in charge, or is she going to be more like an advisory? An advisory hologram that the kids will consult and get help from.
Yeah, that's what I suspect.
I think that's more interesting. If Janeway's calling the shots.
They can do it wrong, or they can like try to do it right and either get it right or get it wrong. Whatever.
And they always have the option. It's more interesting if they have the option of ignoring her. If they could just say, "Well, she says we should do this, but we're going to do that," that's
computer in program.
Yeah, exactly. So I that's certainly a more interesting version of this, but I do like the idea of it, and I am intrigued to see what the gimmicks are for each of these people. Obviously, we can make some guesses, but and what sort of adventures they get into, and what the context is for why they're stuck on this ship, and why this ship is stuck in the Delta Quadrant, and why there's no Starfleet crew, et cetera, et cetera. There is a lot of fun questions that seem like they could have very interesting answers.
And last thing I want to say is, like, Delta Quadrant, it's a fun sandbox to explore in a little animated show like this. Like, there's stuff in the Delta Quadrant that ain't going to pop up anywhere else. Like, stuff that Voyager introduced. You know, Voyager wasn't my favorite Trek show, but it had
they can't do the
concepts.
Vidians though, because it's for kids.
I think they could. I think you could do like a kid version of the Vidians. You know, just I mean, like, you can do like kid vampires. It's kind of like, instead of like sucking your blood, they want your organs.
I have to leave. I'm sorry, but Starfleet Boy's in the back, so maybe he can, like, we can tag team. He can replace me.
Sure, yeah. I'm gonna bring in Starfleet Boy. We're signing off now, but I'll bring in Starfleet Boy right as Trek on the Tube leaves.
If you're signing off, then I can stay till the end. But
yeah.
Emergency podcasting hologram reporting for duty.
There we go. We have the EPH.
I just glitched.
But yeah, I just wanted to add that I think there's a cool sandbox there. You have like the Borg, you have the Vidians, you have the Hirogen. You can bring in Neelix and the Talaxians, like, they can show up. You can get into communication with Starfleet and Pathfinder and have like Barclay on the phone with these kids. There's a lot of cool shit you can do that they'll never ever explore in any other Star Trek show. So why not do another Delta Quadrant show? That kind of makes a lot of sense to me. And doing it as like the kids show, because if you don't care about it, if you don't want to watch it, if you're like not into like the Nick Jr. version of Star Trek, don't watch it. It's in the Delta Quadrant. None of it matters. It's all divorced from everything else, far, far away. So there you go. It seems like a pretty perfect idea for everything they want to accomplish with the show. That's all I have to say. If anyone else has anything else to contribute, go ahead, and then we'll end the podcast.
I just want to say happy birthday, Father.
Well, thank you. Well, I'll be around later tonight. I'll show up on Starfleet Boy After Dark at some point.
All right, sounds good. I'll
I want to talk about like Falcon and Winter Soldier. I really liked this week's episode.
Awesome. I'm about to watch it, actually.
Yeah, that show sucked until now. It finally got good.
Episode 4? Is that what we're on?
Yeah, 4 of 6.
All right,
There's only 2 more.
I've only seen the first one, but I didn't think it was terrible.
I loved it. Yeah, I loved it from the start.
Yeah.
But I'm glad Father.
I ain't really into shows about like the Air Force blowing people up, but that's just me.
No. Well, anyways, I can't wait to see it and talk to you about it later. With you about it later on. Can I give a real quick plug for what's happening later?
Yes, you certainly can. You need to let us all know. I'll give you the big screen.
Oh wow! Holy moly! All right, so first part of Drunk Space. Oh, sorry, that's what it was. All right. I'm not drunk, I swear. I'm just like nervous because you said I'm going to be on the big screen.
Yeah,
I don't know why.
Let me figure out how to do that.
Oh, here, I have to do this though. That's it. Then I think I'm normal. Yeah, I'm like the rest of you guys now.
How do I make you the big screen?
Drunk Space Nine is taking over Starfleet Boy After Dark because I'm going to be on Drunk Space Nine. So right after we record Drunk Space Nine, we're going to go to Starfleet Boy After Dark. So we'll be as drunk as Father probably will be after his birthday celebration. So
y'all don't even know how drunk I am now. I've been drinking all.
Whoa, you're drunk? Are you drunk?
Don't even notice.
You're doing such a good job. That's amazing. Other than, what did you call that one guy? Little shit. That's
short shit.
Short shit. I might have suspected.
Short shit, motherfucker. Get it right.
Oh wow. Okay, yeah. I might have suspected at that point. Your usual level of decorum might be a little less.
Yeah, we've moved far beyond chuckleheads.
Gotcha.
And we will, of course, have more Tex-Trek goodness in a couple of weeks. Or I'll take a couple of weeks off. But we will be back. We have plenty to talk about. So, until then, as always, everyone's ready to do it. Everyone has like their live long and prosperous thing ready to go. Okay, so until next time. See, I'm playing around with them now.
This is the best episode.
That was intentional. That was not an accident on Father E's part.
I am the guardian of forever.
We're still alive.
Until next time.
Never-ending story.
Can we end so I can go eat my Thai food?
Yes,
Until next time, as always, live long and prosper, y'all.
Listen to the Tex-Trek podcast through Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or at tex-trek.com. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/tex-trek. And follow Father E on Twitter at TXTrek. Please support us by liking our videos and subscribing to our channel on YouTube. Thank you and take care.